Nations Trust Bank Private Banking is the epitome of elite banking. With its exclusive privileges devoted to providing just the right balance between financial success and lifestyle, our private banking members richly deserve. A financial solution dedicated to excellence, with an unparalleled array of products and services that enrich, enhance, and empower success. A financial solution focused on wealth creation, lifestyle, and the establishment of legacy. A legacy of priority, a legacy of abundance, a legacy much desired. Creating a legacy that's timeless.
About 2-3 years ago, we began a big initiative with big hopes and dreams called Plant. And our whole philosophy was around creating forest corridors and rewilding and protecting private land masses in the country, right? That was just 3 years ago. 25 years ago, there have been people like Sunela who've been advocating for this very same thing very strongly. So it's interesting. Echelon called her one of the 50 most powerful people in 2013, 14, Times of India and Time and India Today said she's the leading environmental architect in the country. And, we all wonder and, appreciate when we are at Villuina or Kadrugeta or something like that, we take that all in. But it's funny, isn't it? We are not here to listen to any of that. We are here to listen to her personal story around living at these beautiful foothills and how she's looked at that landscape and said, this needs to be something different. And she's led by practicing that and embracing nature and giving back to the wild what the wild and the creatures owned in the first place. So this is a story of 25 years of rewilding her own personal properties and the lessons learned from that. And with that, I'm sure there'll be a number of interesting tips and takeaways that we will get in terms of what we could be doing on that journey. So I think it's very important that we have one of Sri Lanka's leading messengers of hope, messengers who talk very passionately about our interaction and interplay between living and living in a holistic manner. Sunela, over to you.
I've never been so tall. Thank you, Sriyan. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, gosh. Right, okay. Getting used to height here. So let me just before I go anywhere, let me just tell you, I'm not a scientist. I'm an architect by training and environmentalist by passion. So what I'm going to tell you is very much my personal story. And I hope that I can convince at least one person here to take even half a perch of land and convert it or donate it to the other species who live alongside us. So 25 years ago, we started something which turned out to be a rewilding project. We didn't know the word then. I'm not sure there was such a word 25 years ago. And this is where it started. Once upon a time, there was a glossy ibis. This would have been the early 70s, and I, at the time, was the youngest member of the Wildlife and Nature Protection Society. And after some 80 years, a glossy ibis had been sighted in Sri Lanka. It was somewhere in the Athidia marshes, I think, of Mount Lavinia, somewhere down there. And can't hear me? Okay. Is that better? Okay. And Thilo Hoffman was the president. Lalit Senanayaka, who was known to my family at the time. So they took me along, almost sort of passing the baton from, you know, the top end of WNPS to the youngest member. And that's where I think this little conservation germ started. I had a Henry's, which I'd been given when I was very, very little, barely read. But anyway, going with this very impressive team, I wasn't impressed then because I didn't have a clue who they were. But they took me along, and I remember this glossy ibis in a paddy field. This is a photograph of the net suspended. It's not my iPhone photography. And, you know, in the 70s, this was a terrible time for environment because iconic protected areas like the Singaraja and Horton Plains were being given out the Singaraja was being given out for logging, given, I think, to a Canadian company. And I don't know whether you can read what, this is an article by Thilo Hoffman, who really led that battle along with the March for Conservation. And it says the untouched forest is, and in brackets he says was, because he had obviously already given up hope on the Singaraja. It's unique, and if it is disturbed, as it inevitably is by logging, its character and nature are lost. So I think that these are things which one constantly, I grew up hearing these terrible things. I heard about the potato farming in Nuwara Eliya, in Horton Plains and Nuwara Eliya. And, you know, funnily enough, I couldn't find anything on the web about that terrible disaster. And I think that's something that should be on record because people don't know how close we came to losing Horton Plains. Yeah, so, I mean, anyone who grew up hearing these things in the 70s, I would have been not quite 10, but it impacted me. So from the time I was a child, this was this thing of growing wilderness, having wilderness, being around wilderness. Every holiday was in the jungles anyway, so this was not, you know, it was just a matter of extending the holiday. And so 25 years ago, we finally found a property in the dry zone and bought it. And when I told my mother that I bought this land in Wasgamuwa, she said, why not Kandy? Why not Kandy? There, that's why. And, you know, there's something about the dry zone, the jungles, which I think I find magnetic. So this is where we are, Dunvilla. We named this collective of chain cultivations, which we purchased part by part, Dunvilla, after the lake, which is a very ancient name related to the whole Ravana legend. I won't go into it now, but so we named it Dunvilla, and it's, as you can see, right on the border of Wasgamuwa National Park. And there it is. This is the land. This here, can you see the cursor moving? Can you see it on there? No, you can't, no? Okay, I see it on the screen, but anyway. To the left, you'll see, yeah, to my left, you'll see the forest, which is a national park, and you'll see the boundary, and you'll see an open patch of China, and then there in the middle is us. And this is the earliest satellite photograph that I can find from 2006. We looked at this China land, and this is what we wanted. We were looking at this bald, bare, partially scorched piece of land, and this is what we wanted. We wanted forests. So as you can see it better, and the red line is the electric fence. Now I'll show you later on where we are right in front of that. So we are in that little bit between the, okay, that's where we are. And this is what we wanted. We wanted to have an extension of that huge big national park. This was our best offering to the wildlife, which were getting shot at. This is a high human-elephant conflict zone. And this is what we tried to do and what we've done. And that little green bit is what we, that was our plan, the dreams of a conservancy. The idea that wildlife migrates from a large space even into a tiny space and finds sanctuary there. The red line behind us separates us from the village, and we've had a lot of issues from the village and from the Department of Wildlife for putting ourselves outside the fence. And I think finally Dr. Sumit Pilapitia intervened on our behalf. And I think we have a convert or two in the department in Wasgamuwa who really now, they realize what the point of this now. After many lectures and arguments and so on, because they wanted to fence us in with the village, and that's definitely not what we wanted to. And as I'm often told, you're more afraid of the villagers than the elephants. Rightly so, I think. I was inspired by Sam Popham. He was a friend. I eventually became one of his trustees. His book was so inspirational. He had done this long before we did this. He converted Chena land into a forest. He had arboretum, which we don't have, but he actually rewilded this. And initially we did use his method, which was to clear the thorn scrub and to plant assisted, natural restoration. So Sam was definitely a big inspiration. His book, reading his book was fabulous. And I don't know whether it's available still, but if you can find it, I'd recommend you get that. And then there was this gentleman, Lucky. Lucky was a friend, entertainer, performer, whatever you call it, workmate. And he and I would argue about everything related to forests and trees because, I'm a bit of a Puritan when it comes to forests, and he would say, no, man, you can put kumbuk in the mountains, don't talk nonsense, I'll put some puak. And I would say, no, you can't do that. And I was, and then he and I would have this ongoing debate about a Nilveralu tree, which I was convinced it was this tree from northern Australia, which and he said, no, it's a root draksha, the root draksha breed that the yogis wear, the big seed. So this argument went on and on and on, and it was never resolved. And the year he died, we planted a Nilveralu at Dunvilla, even though we normally don't plant any exotics. So that tree you see is a Nilveralu, which actually my daughter Savera found for me from a plant that Lucky had planted. And there it is. That was to give in to Lucky, and he won the argument. And we had huge footsteps to fill. We had, the Lucky, the Sam Papam, and the forest that we looked out at. So we started by building a little cottage, a very rustic little cottage, which was weekend getaway. We would go there once a month. It took about 7 hours to go there back then. Now it takes 4 hours. And this is where we would go every month. Our daughters, Amma and Savera, would go from the time they were little. They knew all the kids in the village. And, while they were running around and measuring elephant footprints and God knows doing what, my husband and I, Karu and I, would go looking for seeds and plants and so on. And that's how it was. About 4 years after we bought this property, Jetwing came to me and asked me to undertake this project at Sigiriya. At the time, they wanted me to build the Royal Heritage Hotel at Sigiriya. And I couldn't build a Royal Heritage Hotel. So I did a concept and I came up with the name Viluyana. So this is how the land was transformed. At the top, you see the land that I first saw in 2002. And then we built the wetland. So what we built, I think Jetwing wanted me to build a wetland like the Barnes wetland in London. And I had never seen I still haven't seen the Barnes wetland in London, but when they said wetland, I saw a Sri Lankan wetland. So they were going there and I was going here, but we got to Viluyana. And the concept was actually we rewilded. It was going to be a hotel, but it was also going to be a sanctuary. So this is a hotel which has no walls or fences. We have earthen bunds on the property so that any wildlife can cross. We don't have paved walkways so that rainwater, any animal can get across. So at every level, I tried to bring in, what should I say? I think consideration for whatever other species that would inhabit this property. And, Viluyana commands about $1,000 a night now. Whereas I think that if they did just another resort or the Royal Heritage Resort or whatever it was, they may not have been able to command that price because people come to see the loris. It's the one place in the world that you have a guaranteed sighting of a loris. The reptilian population has quadrupled because we did fauna and floral surveys before we started construction. And obviously the bird life and the mammals. They have all the cats except the leopard, and only I'm disappointed about that. But yeah, so with Jetwing, this is the earliest image I could find was from 2009, and you can still see that it was a bare land. We had done about the assisted natural restoration of forests, but that means we planted forest there because this was a hotel and they needed a forest. If you're going to sell forest, we had to have a forest by the opening. So we had to plant trees. This is Viluyana now, right? So you can go back and you can, right? But they had a budget, they had a goal, they had a purpose. We didn't. for us, it was a ongoing, life's work, a passion. And this is one of the oldest photographs I could find, and this is the kind of land that we purchased. Few tamarind trees and everything else had, I don't think there was anything else beside tamarind. Maybe a bit of Godakirala or something, but nothing. And this was the land we purchased in 1999. And this is the first Google image. You can see the boundaries. And there's the electric fence keeping us out of the village. And across that river and the lake in front is the Wasgamuwa National Park. We had a couple of patches of assisted natural restoration, in that we let whatever was regenerating in the Haina regenerate, but we also added plants. We found trees that were not naturally regenerating. We collected seeds and plants there, and again on this side. Here we had a problem, because that's where we have our neighbors who are farmers. They won't let us grow anything there, because they either set fire to it or they uproot it or something, because what they say is the elephants will then hide there and cross the... They actually don't, but I mean, this is an ongoing debate, and they're not completely convinced. They don't like the fact that we are rewilding. And then here we have the natural restoration, and the reason we just left that, we didn't actively plant there, is because at some point we intended building a permanent home there. And we've done that now. We actually live there. We've lived there now for over a year. And I don't know what I'm doing in Colombo, quite frankly. But yeah, so now the house is built, and the balance area, we can do more A&R, which means it will look a lot better than this scraggly, naturally restored forest. Because obviously if you actively plant, it grows faster, like willow or something, And how did we rewild? It was a matter of copy pasting. So copy pasting, in that is rewilding, where you copy natural forest as closely as possible. People ask me often what the difference between this and analog forestry, which is also well promoted in Sri Lanka. I think analog forestry is not as particular about native species. They're all right with exotics. Now, rewilding isn't. Rewilding is where you grow your native plants, and then if you have exotics, you remove them. So that's the fundamental difference. So that's what we had to copy and paste. And if you can see, this is the lake in front of us, and this is what we look out on, and this is what we are trying to emulate. And we would go up the streams and the oyas that go into the park and collect seeds. In the dry season, we would walk up those streams and collect, where the seeds are, washed up and easily visible. In the rainy season, we would collect the seedlings, and that's what we used. So each year we would do a wander up the rivers and collect either seeds or seedlings. And then we'd have nurseries, because if you know the forestry department, sadly falls short. You're more likely to buy a eucalyptus plant or a pinus plant than something grown rather than a native plant. So we built our nurseries, and the tree you see there in the middle is, for instance, that was a seed we collected from what may have been the Wasgamuwa National Park. It wasn't fenced at the time, so Mr. Marasinghe, you can't point fingers at me. Your boundary wasn't clear. And we collected that seed from under a palu tree, and we are sure it was a palu. It grew up to be a calamander. So, and then we, I'm trained as an architect, and everything I learned or everything that was demonstrated was very formal gardens. Here with rewilding, I had to unpack the whole concept of landscaping and just let it go wild. And then you see a certain beauty. It's something that no human hand can achieve. That's the entrance to our house where we live now. And everyone who comes there probably curses me. They don't say anything really, but they have to go over roads and lose side wing mirrors and all this. But I mean, rather that than we cut a root or move a tree or something. So if you visit us, that's what you have to endure. We built a rainwater collection pond because just to hold it, and then it goes down and to the paddy field and to our paddy field, and then down to the lake. On the western aspect, the slope is such that it goes straight into the Oya. So it's only on the eastern aspect that we needed a rainwater collection to maximize the water that was flowing across the land. And then, we learned about nurse logs, which is basically if a tree or a branch falls, if you can leave it without, if it's not really obstructing you, leave it, because that's where the mycelium growth and that's where the seedlings go and lodge. Erosion will take it and stick it under a dead log, and it will be protected. And the little seedlings will grow there under these logs as they rot, and they give them enough nutrition. We learn to value leaf rot, not sweep up everything you want in your side, everything you see in your side. Just let it rot, because that's again where seedlings and mycelium grows. And so again, this is January 2006. This is I think 2013 when the next Google image is available. And this is 2017. And this is 2023. If you look at this one, it actually has less trees. If you go back, 2017 has more. Because in 2021, when we started building a house, we harvested all the teak. Teak is not native, so we harvested it and used it to build our house. So, and that's, teak we had inherited from when we bought the China. So that's what was already there. We let it grow and then we harvested it to build the house. So 2023 is slightly less forested, and we have now planted native trees in those gaps. So there you go. And you can see how it's progressed. This is the same path at the top, and 20 years down the road, down the same path. I can't take a long shot. You have to break it up into 3 pieces, because it's, the trees have grown, and I can't take that straight, clear view of the path. This again, my husband and I were looking at this, and we can't quite figure out where this was. But we think it's deeper along this area. This is the edge of the paddy field, and on your right you'll see the electric fence. And we think it's a little deeper in there, that this earlier photograph was slightly deeper in here. On the left, the two small photographs of the edge of the Dunviloya. I don't know whether you can see how empty it is, how well cleared it was then, and this is 2022. And we can see otter. I've seen otter from our bedroom. We have all the small cats. The big cat that doesn't come to Biluena doesn't come to our land either, but I've seen it across the lake. And we hear the leopard and the bear across the water. And this is the forest as it's growing now. This was absolutely bare chain cultivation. So these trees are no more than, say, 24 years old. And this is our canopy. It's closing in. These are the markers for us, because this is a canopy of native species. And these are few of the trees which, specific trees, like the top one is a tamarind, which was shorter than me, and now you know how short I am. I'm standing on 2 steps here. The one below that, the small one, is a meat tree, which we had to plant about 3 times because a buffalo broke it, then elephant ate it, it was whatever. So now it's growing. And the big photograph is of that palu seed that grew into a calamander tree. And these are views now. We are looking across forests. From looking across Hainas, we are now looking across forests. And these are paddy lands. My husband grows heirloom organic rice, heirloom species, the Purana, Suandal and Kaluhinati, and he knows all this stuff. I'm not very good with it. But for 25 years, we've not used any chemicals on the land. Initially, he used organic fertilizers, but that, I think we needed that only for about 5 to 6 years, and now the soil has recovered, so it doesn't need any fertilizer. And it's the only problem is that it's so fragrant when it ripens that even we can smell it. So can you imagine what that does to excite the elephants? And so we practice the traditional land use, which is in the Mahakanna. During the northeast monsoon, we grow the paddy. And in the Yalakanna, when there is less water, we grow crops which require far less water. And we're also reviving things like these rituals, like the alidane, which was practiced in this area, where they give this little rice cake called a key roti, soaked in bees' honey and milk, and they offer it to the elephants after taking the harvest, in thanks for not ruining their fields. And the reason we do it is because I think it's to demonstrate to our neighbors that we respect these animals and that we are very happy to cohabit with them. So in addition to being on the outside of the electric fence, we also do this. So either they think we are mad, but somewhere in their heads, hopefully, something will germinate that it's all right to cohabit with other species. And so in the Yalakanna, during the dry season, we are reviving the heirloom species of food plants, like the big images of something called Idal Iringo, which is a sorghum, which can be ground to a flour. We are doing some of the herbs and some of the pulses, and the pink flowers are the kurakang fields, which is only grown seasonally. So what you're also doing is enriching the soil by changing the crops, rather than do 4 seasons of rice or something, which is what a lot of people do. And we are doing the contour planting rather than the monocrops just throughout the land. We do the contour planting, and which is you're using the higher ground for the plants that need less water, and a lower ground for plants that need more water. So using the natural water flow to your advantage, which was what was done island-wide, which is now referred to as the Candian home garden system, but actually it was probably practiced throughout Sri Lanka till colonization, when we were told that monocultures are the clever, smart thing, which we all know now is not correct. Because we bought trainers, we also inherited, like the teak, we inherited a few coffee plants, which we harvest now for our use. So we are foraging the wild caravilla. We have the little berry-like thing is actually the flower of the meat tree, the Madga longifolia, which I've started making a jam. After the first rains, we have mushrooms, and the wildlife is coming. I think that several people have asked me whether they can come and photograph the spot-bellied eagle owl, who is quite comfortable in our property. In fact, it comes and sits on our balcony and stalks the cats. And of course, all the other wildlife that's returned and got comfortable there. So Indian pittas, butterflies have increased. You've got ornamental spiders, you've got pip scorpions, pipistrelles, and we have a pond in the new house, and we've put in all the native fish. Except one of our friends from the village thought you were being very kindly, and he brought us a fish which he said as a gift, and he had put it in at 5 in the morning when we were asleep. It was a gurami. So can't find the gurami now, so it's there with all our native fish. And these are the animals that are there, but we don't see them as much. We'll occasionally spot the fishing cat. Jackal we've not spotted, we've only spotted its nightly offerings. And then, of course, these gentlemen who find their way across our land, they lay their own paths. That the other photograph of is one who swam across quite early, if you can make it out. As I said, apologies, this is phone camera photography, all of it. This is at night. You can see it's come out of the water. You can see the watermark halfway up its stomach. But it's complicated, and I mean, the electric fence to me is not really effective because they knock it down every night all over. We hear it actually working because it short circuit somewhere, so maybe once in 4 or 5 days it's repaired, and that's all. But the elephants are there every night. And yeah, it is a problem. That's our neighbor who just doesn't see the point of what we are doing, who removes all the trees that we plant on her boundary, and she poisons peacocks. But so we have different points of view, clearly. We'll feed the peacocks and she'll put out poison, and one day I think there are about 40 dead peacocks. So what do you do? We come from different schools of thought. That's another neighbors, and clear electrocution. There were greens in this elephant's mouth when it died. And autopsy said electrocution, but nothing happened. That was about a year ago. Fires, but we can only try, but at the end of the day, there is economics involved here. And unless we give these people a more lucrative option, we really can't preach to them. And it's not always easy. Even our rewilding, going back to the rewilding, this was a Dipterocarp horror plant which a friend brought to me, and we nurtured it very carefully, but one night somebody slipped onto it. You can see who slipped. So that was the end of that. And this was an orchid which a friend of ours gave, and she told us that it was a native species, and then Dr. Malik Fernando broke my heart by saying, no, it's not. But he has very kindly given us some lovely native plants. And yeah, we try with everything. So this was a creeper which actually blocked our view, and we want to build a little pavilion there. So that's my husband instructing on how to lift the creeper rather than cut the creeper. And we have a little pathway, so we save this creeper. And it is a work in progress. Right now, we are in the process of removing non-native species of, so there's ipil, which is a menace. It's apparently in the 70s, early 70s, it had been given out and people used to fight to go and get seeds. It's a horrible thing. You can't control it. It's such a terrible invasive, and it's not a good wood. I don't know what it was given. Was it given out maybe for firewood or something in early 70s? I don't know. We started a herb garden, but then we realized that every native herb is used for something. So a dedicated corner is a bit of a silly thing. Then some plants, the seed, and then we have to translocate them because they're just in the wrong place. So we then replant, we move them around. So as I said, it is a work in progress. It will always be. And there are lessons here, no? So me as an architect, to me, this nest is fabulous. Look how well integrated it is. So these are lessons I learned, and those are the steps to a house on the right. So I'm trying to be as unobtrusive and in actually building, because building is obtrusive and invasive, however you do it. And as I said, we learned so much. These are the mountains, and in time, just watching them, we learn the names of these mountains, we learn the legends around them. We listen to the stories of the old poacher who works with us. Our dog, Timbi of Timirigasai, has learned not to chase elephants or peacock. Our little granddaughter, Arya, she's a little jungle baby. And that's her identifying using Dinosaur Rahim's leaflet on snails to identify snails at 2.5. And so as you can see, some of the neighbors have accepted us, while some others still have issues about our electric fence. And there is no volume on this, is there? No, unfortunately, there's no volume, but that's me whistling at a shama, and the shama scolds me and then whistles way better than I do. And so I've managed to convince Dr. Sumit Pilapitiya to come and help with teaching the villagers how to compost. And they're keen on this because we have an invasion of the water hyacinth and the salvinia. So that's something we have to keep doing, and increasing the number of people who manufacture compost. the Federation of Environmental Organizations has started working in Wasgamuwa, and they are clearing some of the water bodies as well. So hopefully we'll see a difference in about a year or two. This is an initiative by a caretaker because, you know, we don't want the electric fence, but he has to protect himself. So he's using bamboo as an early warning system. So the elephant will crack that and that will wake him. This is another little conservation initiative. This is an old poacher who expert on the jungle, but he's a poacher. So we have employed him from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that keeps him out of the jungle. So he's a night watchman. And there is hope. There are freshwater crabs in our paddy fields. Soon after the fires which constantly come from the village, they set fire and it comes onto our land. The soil regenerates, the soil has regenerated, so we have lichens growing in about almost a week. The endemics are returning. That's a spot-winged thrush with the circle. Again, iPhone photography, so sorry. Yeah, so they're coming back, and that's for me really a sign of hope, you know, because I know there was nothing there. The painted lip lizard is quite common now. On the wild shrubs, they are moving faster than the ipilipil now, in little patches, in some patches. So that means that we are making a difference. And the range of myceliums also is a good sign, because it's a sign that the soil is recovering or even recovered after 25 years. And that's the edge of our forest that you see from across the lake. So this is taken from our kayak, and I think it looks pretty much like a forest. And this is looking from our forest across the water at the national park, the forest in the national park. This is the forest that we have grown. And yeah, this was bare ball land. Exactly what you're looking at, where you're looking at now was bare ball land. And now 25 years later, it's actually, I can call it forest without any reservation. And that is the future. So thank you very much. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to the Wildlife Society for inviting me, and of course to the IBIS.
You may be comfortable here to answer the questions. We have time. We have time for about 15 minutes for a few questions and answers.
I love the idea. I love the idea of your water being used.
Yeah.
I'm very much interested. What we're finding is when we put the water, which comes from the rain, in the dry season, it all seeps through. So we tried putting a layer of mud or making the mud. Didn't work. I'm about going to try to put some bentonite, which is a form of clay, but you might have a much better idea. My intention is to make that, it was a one-time fish pond, tilapia, or those nice ornamental fish. We like to do lotus. I don't know whether that's sort of foreign, but our biggest problem is how do we retain the water during the dry season? Or have we just got to pay the price and let it regenerate when the waters come back in? We are Mahadali irrigated waters, although we shouldn't be using that water, so we haven't, but the previous owners have. So any advice on that side would be excellent. Thank you.
The lotus would be good. You can find the native species of lotus there, but because it will stop the evaporation, because what you're losing is primarily to, you assume, to evaporation. Okay, so the other thing you can do is use a layer of cow dung or something, because it soon builds almost a skin. You will always lose a bit, but it might just help mitigate. But during the dry season, yeah, yeah, and that's fine. No, the fish pond is actually on a rock. It has a rock base, but the rainwater collection pond, we've not put any fish in there. And if there are fish who found their way in, so they're presumably they'll find their way out. So some of them are, they migrate during the rainy season, the dry season.
Not sure if this applies to you, but with my limited knowledge of animal agriculture in Sri Lanka, farmers who tend to have cattle allow it to roam into neighboring lands and it causes desertification. Have you dealt with that, or have your neighbors dealt with that and found any good compromises or solutions?
Because we live in a farming community, and so during the Mahakan, or when the that main cultivation season, the cattle are usually kept that tied up or whatever. During the dry season, if at all they are allowed to wander into our land, which is all right really, except if they, because we don't, we do the dry season cultivation, the yellow cultivation, but if we don't use the entire land, so someone chases them off. But it's not a huge problem, because while they allow them to come into our land, because their lands are still cultivating, because they'll do 3 seasons of rice, whereas we don't. So they wander through our, but it's not a big issue. I did show you a tree which was repeatedly broken by cattle and elephants, but not a huge issue. No, substitute. A lot of trees have to be substituted. We found like things like gammalu, elephants will eat them before they can get to a foot. So we can't grow them, or we'll have to really protect them from elephants, which is not an easy thing to do. Yeah, so just, we've not grown them after they ate about 10 of that. Yeah, I mean, we found that we couldn't grow the gammalu because elephants seem to love it. Maybe a foot or two. Exactly. To be very honest, we've not really measured the whole thing, because we are only worried about the fence between us and the village. And because we bought several parcels of land, the paperwork always says 2.5 acres, but actually some are more, some are less. Plus we have about 70% of our boundaries are water, which means there's a huge irrigation reservation, which only we can access or by boat. So we think it's somewhere between 12 and 15 acres. Yes, originally early Mahabali lands, very early Mahabali land.
Have you noticed the incidence of flood and drought in this area increasing?
Not really. No. Not noticeably, no.
And do you, I don't know what the forest fire cycles are like on your land, but do you allow for a natural forest fire to happen?
No, because we don't. And we really don't have to worry about the natural cycle because our neighbors set fire to their lands anyway. Quite unnatural. Madhuri, you'll come and do it for me now? Certainly.
WNPS can do it for because they are doing that. No, I mean,
Yes.
because there's no such data
Yeah.
on weather changes. So since
No.
you are there,
Yeah, I've kept little notes on when the monsoon breaks and so on, but not anything more really. And I've been looking at YouTube on how to build a few rainwater gauges and things, but I'm happy to have anyone come and install.
yeah,
them.
because 5 years data we can do much more in terms of conservation strategies there.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we didn't start this as a, we didn't document this because this is, I didn't plan on talking about this 25 years later. So. There we don't have a serious slope at all, on very slight inclines, but if you do something like bamboo is superb. Bamboo. If you can grow bamboo on your slopes, it's excellent. It holds the soil. Yeah. It's very colonial, No, he was saying.
Sorry, are you growing the bamboo or you?
No, I'm not growing. I mean, we have a bit of bamboo, again, something that the elephants love, but we don't have a problem with erosion. We don't have slopes of like that.
Because we just built some near us the same way as the paddy
Yeah.
farmers use.
Yeah.
So we just last month, we
Yeah.
built it because we're at the height of rain, and the slope is not a great deal because in Villa everything is flat basically, but it's not. Yeah. So to do that, and I also learned about soak pit. So we've dug some soak pit 6 by 6 and 6 deep.
Yeah,
And I
it's
don't know
just-
whether, this is not adhering to.
If it's not really a big issue, I mean, something like a soak pit is, to me, quite invasive. Yeah, and I'd rather use plants of some kind to contain it, contain the erosion rather than actually, digging up and building and something.
And lots of things that you can learn and forget about what kind of this and all part of other things. No, we're not doing all of it. Can I ask, how many neighbors do you have?
We have 2 immediate neighbors, but it's a big village. It's a very big village.
How many people?
I'm not quite sure of the exact population, but the school has something like, it's a Mahavidyalaya, almost 4,000, like 3,000 odd kids in the school. So it's a big area, which is just south of the Wasgamuwa gate, the national park gate. We see them every maybe 3-4 days, but they're there every day. Most often, I mean, we know they're there. We see, if you go, you'll find signs of them somewhere because they come onto our land. Some days they're going to the village, some days they don't. They actually, just hang around our land itself. We had some huge mango trees again, which we had inherited, which we didn't get any mangoes because they had actually made their own path. I showed a photograph of that from the river straight to the mango tree.
Yes, I think you should be commended for all the work you have done.
Thank you.
And very brave as well, even under those conditions. Can I ask you whether you came across any snakes living in those conditions? Because that's a common habitat for
Of course,
most
yes.
of the highly poisonous snakes.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that, really.
If it's not in my way, then if it's in my way, I try to get out of its way. That's all.
Daughter is in the audience, she has survived, so all the snakes.
Yeah, both daughters are here. The older one has stepped over crates and all, but yeah.
If you don't have any more questions, I would like to welcome the Conservator General of Forest as well. And could you have Dr. Malik over again to hand over a copy of the book, please?
So Sunila, thank you for a very enthralling session. Lovely personal journey. Thank you for being so open with your experiences and sharing that. And before we have Spitzer hand over a small gift, since many of you are interested in rewilding, I thought I'll just share a little bit about what the last week of work has been with plant, because we were up in Muskelia this week, launching a fairly ambitious program there. We are trying to rewild a forest corridor on both sides of the Muskelia in partnership with Hales, which cuts across 5 estates. And the ambition there is 9 kilometers of continuous forest corridor. So if, hopefully at some point that will give results like this, and we'll probably have about 55 hectares, 125, 130 acres of continuous forest passage around there. And early next week we kick off. So I got into a conversation with Sunila quickly, because early next week we kick off work on a perimeter forest corridor around J.R. Javardhana's old estate and family connection, as we know. And so we were quick to get into the conversation, because we are doing about maybe a 3-kilometer forest corridor around that entire estate. And Sunila also has a property there. And we got into a big conversation, and you should just know that she's immediately said, let's look at rewilding the 4-5 acre property she has, and, we'll see how to connect them up. So plant is very, very busy doing a lot of this on scale. We probably have, 2,500 plus acres. We've stopped counting the acres too much, and we're focusing on the quality of what happens within that. But if any of you are keen to kind of work with us on making your forest something like this, your property is something like this, connecting forest corridors or funding or helping us, we really need a lot of help, because our ambitions are far greater than the funding that we have at the moment. So we're going around with a begging bowl to kind of fund lots of these. So with that, can I ask Spencer to please hand over a gift to Sunila, and please show your appreciation, ladies and gentlemen, for that lovely session. Thank you, Sunila. Thank you, everyone, and wishing you all a good evening, and hope to see you at a future occasion. All the best from WNPS for the season. Stay blessed and enjoy yourselves moderately. Thank you very much. Good night.